The Valera were a fragile species, their translucent skin glowing softly in the dim light of their moon's long nights. Their existence depended on cryptonium, a rare mineral found deep beneath their homeworld's surface. Unable to mine it themselves due to their frail physiques, they had long relied on alliances with the more robust species of the Galactic Council. But alliances, as they had painfully learned, were only as strong as the profit margins they offered. Over time, the Valera became a burden. The other species calculated the cost of mining cryptonium against the dwindling resources the Valera could provide in return. When profits dried up, the contracts were terminated. One by one, the allied races withdrew their support. The Valera, once a celebrated symbol of galactic cooperation, were dismissed as a doomed species, unworthy of further investment. As the years passed, their society began to crumble. Starvation and disease ravaged their population. The lack of cryptonium made their already precarious biology even more unstable. Despite their technological sophistication, their inability to sustain themselves without external help had made them pariahs. Desperation drove their leaders to send a final plea to the Galactic Council, only to be met with cold indifference. The council chambers echoed with dismissive laughter when the Valera's ambassador tearfully outlined their plight. A representative from the Threx, a hulking, militaristic species, sneered, "Let nature take its course. If they can't survive on their own, they don't deserve to survive at all." It was a sentiment shared by many in the galaxy. Empathy was considered a weakness, a luxury reserved for those who could afford it. The Valera, with no resources left to barter, were deemed expendable. But in the shadow of this indifference, a faint glimmer of hope emerged. The humans, newcomers to the Galactic Council, had no significant alliances and no established reputation. Their arrival had been met with skepticism, as humanity's relatively short existence in the interstellar community made them seem inexperienced and impulsive. The Valera's elders debated for weeks before deciding to approach the humans. They had little hope for success. After all, no other species had shown any willingness to help. What could humanity offer that the others could not? Still, desperation pushed them forward. The transmission sent to Earth was simple yet poignant. It contained no demands, only a request for aid and a detailed explanation of their plight. The Valera ambassador, voice trembling with fatigue and despair, concluded with a haunting statement: "We do not seek to thrive. We only wish to survive." Among the Valera, there was little expectation that humanity would respond. They had heard the stories, the ridicule directed at humans by other species. Emotional, irrational, and naive were common descriptors. Yet, when the transmission reached the United Terran Federation, it was met with a reaction no one had anticipated. Humanity listened, and for reasons the galaxy would struggle to comprehend, they chose not to turn away. The Valera's message reached the United Terran Federation's council chamber, sparking an immediate debate. Humanity, still finding its footing in the sprawling Galactic Council, was wary of drawing too much attention. Earth's resources were limited compared to the more established galactic powers, and some advisors argued that taking on a failing species would only harm humanity's fragile standing. "This is not our fight," one representative stated bluntly. "We're barely managing our interstellar colonies. Allocating resources to a species deemed unsalvageable by the Council is a risk we can't afford." Yet, among the dissenting voices, others spoke louder. "If every decision we make is based on profit or convenience," countered a senior ambassador, "then what makes us different from the ones who abandoned them? We're not here to replicate their indifference. We're here to be something better." The discussions spilled over into public forums. News outlets circulated the Valera's desperate plea, and a wave of support swelled among Earth's citizens. They saw not a burden, but a moral imperative. Humanity's history had taught them the value of compassion. The cost of indifference had been written in the ruins of their own past. "We've been the underdogs before," a miner from Mars said in an interview. "If we have the chance to help someone else survive, why wouldn't we?" Despite skepticism from within and outside the Council, the decision was made. Humanity would help the Valera. It wasn't an easy choice. There were no immediate benefits, no alliances to be gained, no promises of returned favors. But to the humans, that wasn't the point. The Valera needed help, and that was enough. Plans were drawn up quickly. The Valera's moon presented unique challenges. Violent storms that raged endlessly, dangerous seismic activity, and unstable deposits of Krytonium that were difficult to extract. The risks were high, but humanity wasn't deterred. Specialized teams were assembled, drawing on humanity's resourcefulness and diversity. Engineers worked alongside miners and scientists, developing new methods for safely extracting the mineral. Medical experts studied the Valera's physiology to ensure that the Krytonium could be delivered effectively. Humanity's willingness to act caught the attention of the Galactic Council. Representatives from other species mocked the decision openly. The Threx delegate, the same one who had dismissed the Valera earlier, issued a scathing statement, typical human foolishness. Throwing away resources on a doomed species. Your kind is as short-sighted as your lifespans. The humans didn't respond. They didn't argue or justify their actions. They simply got to work. To the Valera, the response was almost incomprehensible. After years of being ignored, exploited, and left to die, they struggled to process the humans' swift action. Some of their leaders were skeptical, fearing a hidden agenda. Others, overcome with hope, began to see the humans as something extraordinary, a species that valued lives over profit. The humans didn't promise miracles. They didn't claim to have all the answers. But they made one thing clear. They wouldn't turn their backs on the Valera. It wasn't about what humanity could gain. It was about what humanity stood for. The human expedition arrived on the Valera's moon under the constant threat of violent storms that tore through the thin atmosphere. The terrain was treacherous, fractured, shifting with the tremors caused by unstable Krytonium veins deep underground. It was an unforgiving world, a place no other species had dared to face head-on. The humans immediately began setting up modular bases to withstand the storms. Engineers worked tirelessly, using rapid deployment technology to construct shelters and drilling rigs. They operated in shifts, battling exhaustion, knowing every minute counted for the Valera. Miners equipped with reinforced exosuits descended into dangerous caverns, navigating collapses and noxious gas pockets to reach the Krytonium deposits. The first major obstacle came within hours of their arrival. A seismic shockwave destabilized one of the main drilling sites, forcing an emergency evacuation. The ground gave way, swallowing an entire rig. For most species, this would have been a devastating failure, enough to abandon the mission entirely. But humanity's resilience wasn't just a reputation, it was a core part of who they were. Within hours, the team regrouped. They adapted their approach, reinforcing drill platforms and adjusting extraction methods to account for the moon's instability. Scientists monitored seismic activity in real time, providing constant updates to the field teams. Every setback was met with innovation, every challenge an opportunity to improve. The Valera watched from their biodomes, their bioluminescent forms glowing faintly in the dim light. They had been told by other species that humanity was reckless, prone to overestimating its abilities. But what they saw wasn't recklessness, it was determination. The humans didn't just endure the moon's hostility. They overcame it with a combination of grit and ingenuity. As the days went on, the Valera began to interact more with the humans. Some approached cautiously, offering to share what little knowledge they had of the moon's geology. The humans welcomed their input, treating them not as helpless victims but as equal partners in the mission. This small gesture of respect deeply moved the Valera, who had grown used to being dismissed by others. A turning point came when one of the human miners became trapped during a sudden cave-in. The Valera, despite their physical frailty, joined the rescue efforts, using their bioluminescence to light the dark tunnels and guide the team to safety. For the first time, they felt like they were contributing to their own survival, a feeling they had almost forgotten. The mission wasn't without casualties. The conditions claimed equipment and nearly took lives, but the humans pressed on. They understood the stakes. Failure wasn't an option when an entire species was depending on them. When the first shipment of refined Krytonium was delivered to the Valera, it was met with silent awe. The mineral was immediately used to stabilize their sick and elderly, sparking a flicker of hope among their people. For the Valera, it wasn't just the material itself, it was the proof that someone, for the first time in years, believed they were worth saving. Humanity's actions spoke louder than any words ever could. They weren't there for glory or profit. They were there because they cared, and that made all the difference. The final shipment of Crytonium marked a turning point for the Valera. The mineral, carefully refined and delivered by the human team, was distributed among their people. Within days, the bioluminescent glow that had dimmed in so many of them began to return. The elder Valera, once bedridden and silent, stood again, their bodies regaining strength. For the first time in years, there was laughter in their biodomes, faint but unmistakable. Humanity didn't stop there. The mission had been a success, but the humans knew that survival wasn't just about resources. They began sharing technologies to help the Valera adapt to their harsh environment. Portable Crytonium synthesizers were developed, allowing the Valera to sustain themselves without needing massive mining operations. Agricultural specialists worked to engineer crops that could thrive in the moon's challenging conditions, reducing their reliance on off-world imports. The Valera's leaders struggled to express their gratitude. They had never encountered a species willing to give so much without demanding something in return. Every gesture from humanity seemed to defy the cynical norms of galactic politics. The Valera, once seen as a doomed and irrelevant race, were now rebuilding, their future no longer a distant hope but a tangible reality. Word of humanity's actions spread quickly throughout the galaxy. The Galactic Council, initially dismissive of the humans' efforts, was forced to take notice. Reports detailing the mission were circulated, sparking heated debates among the council members. Some species, like the Threx, maintained their disdain, mocking the humans as sentimental fools, but others began to reevaluate their opinions. Perhaps we underestimated them, an Ixan delegate admitted during a council session. They've achieved what none of us deemed possible. Not through force or wealth, but through compassion and ingenuity. Humanity's reputation shifted. No longer seen as naive newcomers, they were now recognized as a species that could challenge the galaxy's status quo. Their actions served as a quiet rebuke to the cold pragmatism that had dominated interstellar relations for centuries. The Valera themselves found ways to honor humanity. They crafted intricate monuments from Crytonium, embedding them with patterns that glowed in the dark. One stood in the center of their capital, depicting two hands, one human, one Valeran, intertwined. Beneath it, an inscription read, "In our darkest hour, they gave us light." But for the humans, the real reward wasn't recognition or gratitude. It was the knowledge that they had done what was right. They had saved a species not because it was easy or profitable, but because it was necessary. As the last of the human expedition departed the Valera's moon, they left behind more than technology and resources. They left a legacy of hope, a reminder that in a galaxy often ruled by self-interest, there were still those who believed in something greater. The Valera, once abandoned and left to die, now stood as living proof of what humanity could achieve. Not with weapons or wealth, but with compassion. In saving the Valera, humanity had done more than rescue a species. They had reminded the galaxy of what it meant to care.